Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Doing great. Another beautiful day in Park City.
It is. All right. The reason I called you together is I want to go through some things that I've been working on and kind of run them by you, have you critique them, contribute to them, tell me I'm nuts, whatever it is. And so that's the reason for this meeting. I'm going to record it, and frankly, I want to make this available if people want to see the process behind what we will be presenting in next month's webinar. Fundamentally, what I'm after is what all of us have been after, and that is in the midst of COVID-19, with all the uncertainty, whether it's associated with local real estate, Black Lives Matter protests, presidential election, so many different things, all the cases, all the deaths. How does one carry on, at least as it relates to Park City real estate? What do we tell a buyer? What do we tell a seller? And we're now about 3 months into it since it was discovered in Park City, middle of March, and we're now in the middle of June. And so we've had some firsthand experience working with buyers and sellers. We've seen deals close. We've seen others get shaky and fail. And I believe that our clients, whether buyers or sellers, or just people in general, want to know, how do you invest in Park City real estate? Is this a good time? Is it a lousy time? And of course, a buyer feels differently than a seller does. And of course, our panel here consists of Dean and Jeremy, buyers agents, Doug and myself, who primarily work with sellers. There's some crossover for all of us. And I've got Lynette Thorne and Jennifer Lee here, our admin staff, who knows what all of us do at all time, including when we go to the bathroom. Hopefully not that. But so they've been working with the team for, Jen, how long? 12 years, 13 years?
Oh, I think I'm up to 15 years.
Oh, and Lynette?
23 and a half.
Years. Okay, so.
Geez, nothing better to do with your time, huh?
Yeah,
I was
you've
telling
been
you.
around the longest, other than me, and so we got a lot of experience here. So what I tried to do is two things. I thought I want us to be able to give some reasonable forecast or prediction as to where the market's going to help the buyers and sellers. How do you do that when we have such uncertainty in the stock market and the virus and everything like that? Really hard. So what I've done is I've come up with a forecast, and I began by starting with a timeline. And I went, how long do you make the timeline? And I decided to make it a 2-year, 24-month timeline, which I'll show you with shared screen in just a moment. Because as far as the virus goes, Dr. Fauci said, and others have said, when it first came out, it's going to be 12 to 18 months before we see a vaccine.
Yeah, at least.
So, at least. And of course, the president's saying it's going to be shorter than a year, but we don't know. Science will prevail on this one. And then there'll be a short period after a vaccine. So I figured I need to go out at least 24 months and make some estimations as to what's happening in different phases. And so that's what I'm going to be sharing with you. And my goal is to share with you, and you react with it. And if you think it's crazy, then let me know. If you think it's on target, let me know. And just share from your experience also, and I'll invite you to do this if it doesn't happen naturally, in terms of what you're feeling or what clients you've talked to or even fellow realtors in Park City. So that's kind of the objective. So, and then from there, we want to make some forecasts about 4 key categories of real estate. And I think that will give buyers and sellers some tools to make the right decision for their situation. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to screen share and pick up the graphic, and that's either going to make us go away or it's going to make us be smaller on the screen, depending upon how this records. Hopefully by now you're seeing an image of timeline in months 1 through 24 and years 2020 and 2021. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so with that in mind, as I said, what I'm interested in doing is coming up with some phases, and we're into the phases, couple steps, but here's what they are. The first 3 months, and again, think of this as starting January 1st, 2020, we had the discovery phase. And what did we discover? We discovered the COVID-19. When it hit Park City, roughly March 14th, the community spread, and the country was discovering it too, and the globe was discovering it too. We got past that, and that led us into the shutdown phase. Basically, March 15th, Park City shut down. The resorts closed, the restaurants closed, and our office closed. Lots of things closed. We started working remotely, doing roundtables, et cetera, and that takes us, roughly with my months, into May. The third phase is the reopening phase, which is where we're at, and of course, the country is reopening at different phases. The globe is reopening at different phases. We're watching the news. We're seeing all of that. So I want to pause there and just talk about this a little bit before I go into the next phases, because I basically see this is where we are. And of course, the health experts are asking, will there be a second wave? And what implication will it have? Will it be a reversal? Will we turn up going back to a shutdown stage or adjusting our rephase? So let's just talk about a little bit of how Park City's doing on a rephase from what you're experiencing, how people are responding, how you're responding, and then we'll kind of build off of that.
All right, well, I can start. Last night was kind of the first or second time I went out and had a couple beers out at a local bar in town, and had some food. And, honestly, for this time of the year, middle of June, Park City seems about the same busyness that I remember from last year or the year before. Lots of people out on trails, lots of people out biking. Main Street, there's lots of people up and down Main Street as the shops have opened up, and I think people are excited to get back out and dine out and do some shopping. In terms of real estate, during the shutdown phase, stuff did shut down in terms of transactions. Lots of transactions failed, lots of transactions stalled, listings stalled out. But as we reopened, we really had a big demand for real estate, and actually quite busy right now from the pent-up demand and whether people are trying to escape the big cities and get a place here in Park City, or just continue on and feel like things are going at a good pace. So, honestly, it feels like town's kind of turned back on, and we're sitting a similar spot as last year, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with what Jeremy said. During the stay-at-home order, the town seemed like a ghost town. You'd go out, you'd go drive through Park City. I'd have to go check on a couple of properties, but there weren't a lot of people. I'd drive up and down Main Street. Main Street would be dead. Now, and speaking of today, I was up on Main Street 2 days ago, actually, and it was packed. There's virtually no parking on the road. People are walking up and down. You do see most everybody wearing a mask and attempting to practice safe social distancing. But yeah, it seems pretty busy. Even I've been back in the office for about three weeks to a month. I go out to lunch typically. For a while there, it was pickup only. Now lunch spots, pretty much every restaurant is open, and some lunch spots are open for dine-in. A lot of places have outdoor patios, which we can use now because the weather's nicer. But it seems kind of like business as usual, with some safer practices as far as wearing masks around and social distancing.
What's going on Main Street? I thought they were going to close it down to car traffic.
Only on Sundays.
Oh,
Yeah, so they went through with that. So this last Sunday, 4 days ago, was the first day that they were doing no cars on Main Street, which they're going to continue throughout the summer. On Sunday, no car traffic, just pedestrian traffic up and down Main Street, which is, I think it's a good step and a good move for the city to do, a good experiment.
did you go there on Sunday, Jeremy, and see that?
No, I wasn't up there on Sunday, but I know that this was the inaugural Sunday.
I'm curious about how that's going to work out.
Yeah.
I know when I've driven around to look at some properties that we were considering listing, up at Red Pine as an example, the parking lots were packed. It was easily as crowded in terms of cars parked as it would be on a normal summer, which really surprised me, frankly. And I drove by the pool up there and I didn't stop, but I could see people out there. So during the days, it is feeling like it's normal. At different times you get on the road, it's the normal traffic, if you will, by Park City standard. Other times it's a little more bare. But it does look, if you were in an aerial looking down, it looks pretty normal.
I thought the real turning point was Memorial Day. It
Yeah.
seemed like before Memorial Day, everybody was staying at home, everybody was locked down, and then the Friday of Memorial Day weekend hit and everybody just exploded out of their houses and they just really needed a release. And that's when everything picked back up.
Okay. So
Yeah,
when we
I-
watch the news and go ahead, Doug.
No, I was just going to say, so, the pre-open phase and shutdown phase, we saw open houses really come to a standstill, or people doing virtual open houses, or maybe an agent will go do a FaceTime walkthrough. But open houses are now open or available to be held live. And we're seeing lots of people coming out for those. Those happen every week, where we introduce the real estate community to come see our new listings. And we did one this week, or we did a couple this week, but the one that I was at, I texted the owner beforehand to get the Wi-Fi code, thinking I was going to get some work done, but I didn't. I was busy for the full 3 hours. I had families coming through, the neighbors coming through. People want to get in and go out and do things and see real estate. It was really good to witness.
So Park City seems to be handling the reopening quite well, and I think we were pretty diligent in terms of following the instructions. What would you say about mask wear? How many people are wearing or not wearing it?
In my opinion, going back to the open house, everybody actually had masks, but I also had a stack ready to go if someone didn't. As I go out into the community in Park City, I would say it's probably 75% wear masks when you go to the grocery store, slightly higher at Whole Foods if you go there. But in general, I would say about a 75% people, that's just my personal opinion, seeing wearing masks.
Okay, and any observations on, quote, social distancing? I mean, we have it easy here. We got so much outdoor lifestyle. We're almost
Right.
Yeah.
can't ride a mountain bike and not be social distancing unless you're really daring.
No, it's kind of interesting. Like when I went out to that bar last night, not as many people were wearing masks. Some people were. It's kind of hard to drink and eat with the mask on. And I saw a couple friends I hadn't seen before. And I think the most awkward thing is when people put out their hand to shake your hand or say what's up or give you a hug, and you're like, yeah, throw the elbow out at them, and you're like, should I give you? I really want to, but people are watching. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think every week, people get more comfortable with it, whether that's good or bad. I think, I go to Home Depot quite a bit, and the mask usage definitely goes down every week.
I
Interesting.
go out on a trail every morning, dog walk, and people on the trails do not wear masks. And the trails have filled up a lot since everybody's been homebound. They all have started going on bike rides, going hiking, taking the dog out. People I've never seen before. The trails are much more crowded now. And people do clump up because they want to visit.
Okay.
As I've been, sorry, go ahead.
Jane.
As I've been working from home, it's been interesting I've loved sitting here with the door open and listening to the birdies in the yard. But it was interesting to observe that at first during the shutdown, it was really like a ghost town, and I didn't see any of my neighbors or anything. And then as time progressed, you would notice a few more kids outside playing. And then I think now I see more people walking around, going for walks in my neighborhood than I've ever seen in all my life here. And
Same here.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting observation of human need we just need to do something. And it's interesting that people they feel safer doing outdoor activities, like
Yeah.
going for a walk or whatever.
Yeah.
Well,
Nice.
overall, it feels like the Park City and surrounding areas, like Ken, you live in Heber, the reopening is going well. Of course, in the news, we don't always hear that, and that leads to the fourth phase. Nationwide, will it be successful or be a setback? It's feeling like, at least as far as Park City is concerned, it's going well. I watch the news, and there's hotspots around the country, and naturally, those hotspots are asking the question: Are we going to have a setback and have to go back to some shutdown phase or not? And nobody wants to, but everyone wants that freedom. So that's a big issue here in our country. I haven't heard as much talk about testing and tracing. It's kind of like, at least in the national news, people don't really want to talk about or think about it. Now, we have certainly had some catastrophic events with Black lives being lost and leading to the protest, and that's gotten a lot of the headline. Of course, upcoming election gets it as well. But we know from experience that we have so many people who live outside of Park City who look to come here on vacation or to use their second home or whatever, or to buy or to sell, that they're influenced by their own local market, whether it's a hot spot or not. And so they have to think about it almost like weather, that weather's different in different geographical areas, and so is the COVID-19 outbreak. Do you get, when you're thinking yourself or talking to others, does the upcoming presidential campaign, we're in the campaign already, an election, does the Black Lives Matter protest, does the whole uncertainty and what the experts are saying about when we'll have a vaccine, and all that stuff, how do you integrate all that together? And do you think that is creating an environment for Park City real estate to happen or not happen? And so with that in mind, that's why I raised the question.
Well, that's quite a question.
And by the way, answer it in 2 sentences, please.
Well, I want to, first off, start with the Black Lives Matter protest, and I want to say I support the protests. I support the peaceful protests. I support change happening in this country when there's been clear racism, systemic racism. It kind of goes back to our history and the country was founded upon. But I think it's a really important movement, and I just want to say, as like a white male, definitely a privilege, but I wanted to say, support this movement in a peaceful manner, and change is happening, and that's really, really important to just humanity itself. So it's been good to see parts of it. Obviously, there's some danger with it, but it's needed in this time, and I think the country's hurting, and voices that haven't been heard are being heard. And then we have this pandemic going on, and then we have what's going to be probably a pretty divided presidential campaign and election coming up, just in a few months. So there's a lot of uncertainty. The stock market's doing some interesting things. The people I've been working with, they've been excited to come to Park City. They've been excited. Maybe they do live in some of the big cities or affected by the pandemic, or, affected by, some of the more violent protests. And, they're excited to come here and get into nature and spread out a little bit and provide us not a better environment, just a different environment for their family and their kids. And so just in terms of real estate, I've definitely seen a bump, or people that have been on the fence say, hey, this is the time to do it. Let's move out there. Let's change our lifestyle from maybe city living to a little slower pace. So, yeah.
I read an article yesterday about people, like an exodus from large cities, trying to get out of large cities into not just small towns, but actually right out into the country.
Mhm.
And so maybe, maybe there is something to say for that. I think, health matters. Everybody wants to be healthy. They want their family to be healthy. They want to be in a healthy position. And Park City certainly offers that.
Yeah.
It does, and it's a real paradigm shift because this close down in the pandemic and working remotely or working from home has had people looking at their options, and they realize that they don't have to live in the cities anymore. And it was interesting that I've been seeing personally enough to where I started talking to other people around town, and they're seeing it as well. Because a lot of people are coming here during the lockdown, and they've been renting a place to just make sure they like it and start to see it in the summertime, which is the best time to see Park City. As they say, you come here for the winter, but you move here for the summer. Stands true. And everybody I've talked to, they're like, yeah, we're getting out of our lease and we're gonna purchase and we're gonna move here. And I'm in tech. I can work from wherever. My wife's flight attendant. She can, there's airport 20 minutes down the road. So we're definitely seeing a lot of that. I think that's good for our local market.
So does Park City have, I don't know if infrastructure is the right word, but if people are moving to town and they want to work from home, moving from big cities, does Park City have all of the speedy internet to offer, and people aren't having any issues with utilities?
Yeah.
I haven't heard of any internet really problems. I think that here in Heber, I have noticed sometimes the internet speed will bog down a little, especially more when school was in session. I think that did have a little bit of effect, but it didn't make it so I couldn't work.
To simply answer that question, I don't think there's ever really, or in recent times at least, been any issues with internet or people complaining in Park City about their internet connection.
I hadn't heard of any. I was just curious.
Yeah, there's a lot of options, and it typically works very well. So,
yeah,
I was pretty impressed that I'm here with my husband who's working from home full time too, and we have a grown child living at home who's pretty much on the internet not 24 hours a day, but pretty close. And we never even have had a hiccup. So I've been really pleased with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've all learned that you can do a lot from home. We see our families more, whoever's at least there. And sometimes that's an adjustment, sometimes not. Depends who talks on the phone the loudest. But yeah, it really has been almost a sociological experiment.
You know the answer to that question, Dad, between you and Mom.
We're not supposed to point at him, Jeremy.
That's right. Be nice, because I can mute you. I'm the host.
Just virtually.
Yeah, and the work from home thing, I mean, we've touched on that work from home thing before, but there are a lot of companies out there, clients that I'm talking to, friends that I'm talking to in different states, they're not allowed to go back into the office until 2021. So there's quite a few people that have plans where they're not going back into the office until 2021. So those people will be working from home. And even when they are going back to the office, they're going to make it a mix, go into the office, stay at home work schedule, where you go into the office 2 or 3 days a week, and then you stay home 2 or 3 days a week. And that kind of seems like, at least right now, is the direction that a lot of companies are moving. And potentially we're going to see that be a mainstay rather than people traveling into the office every single day, which is something that we've seen in Park City for a long time. People that live here are able to work from home, are able to work remotely because of internet connections and technologies that we have that make that possible. But also a lot of people prefer Park City for that reason, because of the lifestyle that you have. But if you do have to make a business trip, you're a short drive to the airport and you can go anywhere in the world. So,
and it's easy to get to your office too if you have to go in.
Yeah.
And Jen and I are doing that. We just started doing that this week so that our desks are really close at the office, less than 6 feet apart. And so we are alternating days going back into the office now.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, well, let's look at this, the next phase here, the vaccine phase. And, if you're optimistic, it may be before the end of the first year. And if you're Listening to the experts, they're saying that's really optimistic. It can be longer, and it might even be longer than the 18 months. But this next phase, which we're not in yet, obviously, there's a lot of things that come to mind. It's one thing to have a vaccine. It's another to get it out, not get it out and get everyone vaccinated and globally. So it seems to me that whenever we get the vaccine, there's going to be a lag factor. There's going to be some testing. Who's going to want to be the guinea pigs, if you will, and then the time to prove it. And then if we have successful vaccines, multiple, that would be great. And then, I think there's been so much criticism about just testing in the United States. Utah was ahead of the curve. Utah tested people, said anyone can come and get a test, and actually had the wherewithal to do that. But that's not what we saw across the country. So what impact is it going to have? We have a vaccine, and I think that's what everybody's looking for. Will that mean that the resorts will be open for the upcoming ski season? Will that mean that people are prepared to travel, go on vacation, get on an airplane? I mean, airplanes are picking up. Let's talk about that. What's going to happen with the economy? That's going to be a boost. Share your thoughts, or share what you're hearing clients saying to you too, or asking you about.
Well, I think, me personally, I think we're going to have a down skier visit year next year, regardless of what happens. I mean, if we get a vaccine before the ski season starts, then it would be much better. But I just imagine that we're going to see less skier visits next year because of the coronavirus and traveling restrictions and fears of people. However, I did speak with, just this morning actually, a property management company, and they're seeing a lot of reservations happening. And actually, in the Park Record, there was an article from the COO and president of Deer Valley, and he spoke on that and says season pass sales are strong and reservations are strong right now for next ski season. But there's an asterisk there because cancellation policies have changed in order to get these reservations. So cancellation, you can cancel. It's easier to cancel your reservation and get your money back. And then also, like we saw with Bill, in the Epic Pass, they're offering free insurance and actually discounting your pass for the numbers of days that you missed in the previous season. So that in order to encourage people to purchase those passes, feel safe. If there's not a ski season, then they're going to give those refunds. But sales seem to be up, and both the CEO of Vail and in Deer Valley or Altera have stated that we're going to have a ski season next year, and they sound pretty confident in that. Now that's going to be different. There's going to be social distancing as far as maybe just chairlifts going up with the group that you're with and not allowing singles or groups meeting up and trying to spread people throughout the mountain, potentially limiting the number of skiers on the hill. Deer Valley has done that in the past. Not sure if that's going to happen at Park City, but we might be seeing less skier traffic anyways, so therefore it would be safe. One thing he did note is travel, air travel. A lot of people that they're seeing are coming from California. So if you come from California, they're saying, well, I could drive if I can't fly. So now that's not going to support a normal ski season, but if we're getting people that are driving and are able to rent properties and be here, then we'll probably still see at least see tourism and people here in town. Whether or not that's a good thing or not is to be determined, but I think it would be a good thing in my personal opinion.
Sounds really optimistic. I'm impressed, and it does seem like skiing, of all the different things that go towards our economy, skiing does seem like something that can handle physical distancing and being careful.
One thing that's been on my mind, though, is the workers for the resort. They have been hit pretty hard. A lot of people that work at the resorts live over here in Wasatch County. And while the Latino population is 14% of the population in Wasatch County, they've had 45% of the cases. And it's in part because they are afraid of losing their job, so they just go to work even if they're sick. And I worry about, are we going to have, because the effect of the virus is being drawn out for so long, are we going to lose some of our workforce because they're going to lose their job, then they're going to lose their housing, and then maybe they move away. And so I do wonder how that's going to affect the resorts.
That's a very good point. A lot of our workers are foreign workers, and they'll come over. They're J1s, so they'll come over from South America. And if we still have travel restrictions or more travel restrictions are put on with the second wave, and they're not able to come here, it's going to be difficult for the resorts, which it already is sometimes difficult for the resorts to staff. It would be more difficult for them to staff everything, keep everything open as far as the restaurants and all the chairlifts.
Yeah.
Positive thing, our neighbor is, you love them or hate them, is Vail. They're a very large publicly traded company. They have resorts all over the world, and that includes open resorts right now in the Southern Hemisphere, where they're studying very closely on how to manage all the things that we've just talked about, how to open a restaurant and still socially distance, etc. So I think that it's top of their priority, and to make sure that we do have a good ski season, and I think they'll lead the charge. Like you said, Deer Valley's already seeing very heavy reservations from California, New York, Texas, Colorado, and here in Utah. So I actually think we're in for a good ski season, assuming
so
Mother
their
Nature,
learning curve will benefit us.
yeah, exactly. So assuming Mother Nature cooperates, if we have another good epic year like we've had the last couple of years with good powder, I think pent-up demand is a very strong thing, and I think we're all feeling very pent up right now.
Yeah, and it's
Powder fever is pretty powerful as well, right?
yeah, and it's important to note. So Deer Valley is opening for summer operations here shortly, and then Park City just announced that they're, I think July 2nd, they're opening their mountain for summer activities. So they are moving ahead with summer activities. And Vail at least is studying their ski resort down in Australia right now to see how they can best function. So good point, Doug.
Thank you.
What kind of summer activities are they going to have here?
I think all the chair lifts are going to be open for hiking, and lift serve mountain biking, and Park City has the activities down at their base, like miniature golf and the roller coaster. So yeah, biking, hiking, activities.
Probably none of the outdoor concerts, right?
All the outdoor concerts have all been canceled.
Yeah.
Those were canceled about a month and a half ago. Yeah, there's some trail running and races that were canceled, but some towards the end of the fall seem to be going on. So.
All right.
All right, well, let me show you the final phase on my timeline, which is the new normal phase. And of course, with the question marks, the size of those last three phases can change or be adjusted, or as I suspect will be different around the country and around the globe. And so that's my 24-month timeline. Just give me feedback. Do you think the breaks are at the right place, notwithstanding the question marks of the uncertainties on the fourth and fifth phases, or should be named something different, or anything? This is really my first pass in front of you guys with this.
It's just so unpredictable.
Right. I think it's a good guess. I was talking to a friend last night about real estate, and he was asking me about how we marketed during this pandemic situation. And I was thinking, in the new normal phase, one of the things that he asked was, are some of the technology tools that we've embraced now, are they going to become the new normal? Are we going to have more virtual open houses, things like that?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, I think this, like in any other business, have given people a chance to, because everything was put on pause, rethink how they do things. And almost get forced into doing the virtual, but then in reality, maybe it makes their business run more efficiently and their customers are happier. So I think it was an interesting reset. And I've got friends that run big companies here in town, whether they make baby monitoring products or Traeger grills, which is a popular grill company here. I was on a mountain bike ride with them this morning, and both of them said they've had record gains in sales. So COVID has been the best thing for their company.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, these online meetings, these virtual video meetings, they're great. They're so much easier to schedule because Jen's in Heber and I'm in Salt Lake and Jeremy's often traveling. Once we get back into a groove, Ron will be out in Malibu more in LA. And it's great to be able to schedule a meeting with all of us being in different places. I do think as far as the new normal, it seems like people are going to get used to wearing masks in public.
I hope so.
And gosh, I know I sure do wash my hands a lot more and a lot more carefully than I ever have in my life.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I would say it feels like we're in that new normal phase right now with the way that people seem to be living and venturing out into public where they have masks, but they're out, right? Park City's busy. So it almost looks like what I had envisioned the new normal being applied currently today. And another thing that we didn't mention before, as far as families or kids, all the sporting or recreational, baseball, soccer, my niece and nephew are in baseball. I went to his baseball game yesterday. They have some different COVID rules as far as interaction and distancing, but you're playing baseball. Everybody's touching the same baseball, but they are playing baseball. My niece is playing soccer. She's going to soccer practice. They're not doing high fives with the other team or anything like that after the games. And but it seems like a new normal right now. And what I had envisioned while we were being told that there's going to be a new normal.
I do think it's possible that those people who don't want to wear masks or don't believe in wearing masks, I think when we get into the new normal phase, they will probably come around to it.
I don't think, my honest opinion is once we get past the vaccine phase, I don't envision a lot of people continuing to wear masks.
Yeah. And I think it's somewhat political. Honestly, I think there is a divide. Like there's a divide.
It doesn't seem like it should be, but it is.
Yeah, well, different opinions on the severity, who it affects. That'd be a whole nother topic, whole nother roundtable.
Okay.
But and state by state and country by country, I got friends in Colorado that it is required to wear masks at any the public spot. Here in Utah, it's not.
No.
In Washington,
a lot of Asian countries, if you have a sniffle, you just put on a mask to go out. And it's just for you to protect the other people that you're meeting out there in the world. And that's just their second nature now. That's just the way they've done it for so long that maybe we will pick up on that at least a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for your input on that. Let's just bounce from here to what we do with this timeline, particularly in regard to talking to buyers and sellers and trying to give some reasonable future outlook for Park City real estate. In my mind, there seems to be four main categories of real estate and how the public is responding to them, and buyers and sellers vary. And this is where, our input to individuals and families can be really helpful, because especially if they don't live here, they're going through all these same events that we're going through, experiencing them within their environment or their state, and it's probably different. So let's talk about these four categories, and I really want your input on this. The first category is primary homes, and based upon the timeline and the stuff we really talked about so far, and this is why this is a progressive conversation here, what do you anticipate happening in the primary home market in Park City? Do you think it's going to stall? Do you think it's going to take off? We've now got 3 months under our belt on this. What are you hearing? What are you thinking?
Well, I think a lot comes back to what we've already said. People are looking to relocate to Park City, get out of the inner cities, come here where there's more open space, and move here. And like I said, I've met a lot of people who've been renting to check it out, and they're falling in love and putting properties under contract. And in fact, pending contracts are now have officially exceeded 2019 numbers for 3 consecutive weeks. So pending is a property that has been placed under contract and to be purchased. So primary homes are already ahead of where we were last year, pre-pandemic.
Seems logical to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still seeing multiple offers. I'm seeing people getting outbid on primary homes. It's primary homes is the hot market right now.
So you're not seeing sellers feeling like or pulling their prices down in order to stimulate this activity? You're seeing to the contrary, or maybe
so kind of to the contrary. What we did see is, in the pandemic, and people pulled, the withdrawal rate, people canceling their listing agreements and taking their home off the market during the pandemic was quite high, and that reduced the inventory of available homes for sale. And with this many people looking, it's actually made them sell quicker and for more money because there's a lower inventory of available primary homes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been in a couple of multiple offer situations, seen properties go well above list price. Recently, I was just helping a good friend buy a property down in Salt Lake, and I was looking back at the comps for that neighborhood, and out of like the 10 comps, 7 of the homes went for above list price in less than 10 days. So that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Coming off the tail end of the pandemic, or still in a pandemic.
Sorry, Jeremy.
That's all right. Go ahead, Dean. You're always trying to talk over me. Go ahead.
I agree with everything that's being said there. However, I do think there's a little bit of, so I'd relate it to the resurgence of COVID positive people that we're seeing right now. And there's quite a few states that have had some of the highest weeks that they've recorded since the whole pandemic started. One of the reasons that we're saying that might be happening, or likely is happening, is because we have more testing. So there's more testing, more people are getting tested, more people are testing positive for COVID, which you would expect. I know we saw a drop in number of sales of single family homes during the pandemic months from last year to this year. And I just have a few numbers. This year, so far, since around March 15th till today's date, there's been 73 sold single family homes in Park City. So Park City city limits and Snyderville Basin. Last year during the same time, there was 149. So there's less properties being sold because people put them off. They weren't able to travel here. So those are all those reasons, which could illustrate why we're seeing so many. So it could be just like a makeup of those people that were ready to buy but couldn't buy at the time. So now we're seeing a lot of pending transactions, or more so than we had in the past. All still very positive because it didn't completely scare people out of the market or scare people from purchasing the properties. If anything, they just sat until they were able to purchase and are now back and active. Which proves true with my clients as well, because I've had a lot of people reaching out and got quite a few people looking for properties. So I do think that has something to do with it, and it's not completely, I just need to get out from a pessimistic look, I guess. I hate to be that guy. But optimistically, it's great. We are seeing people are chomping at the bit, similar to getting out and exploring themselves, and we saw that happen after Memorial Day, like Lynette mentioned earlier. And now we're seeing it with purchasing properties. So people are getting active, and looks like it's going to continue throughout the year unless we see something drastic and we go into a stay-at-home order again, which just based off what we're hearing, that's likely not to happen no matter what happens.
You know,
I have
another,
noticed for the last 2.5 weeks or so that the showing requests for our listings has picked up significantly.
Agreed.
and Jen, that's actually across the board. It's not something that we have historically tracked, but since the pandemic, the Board of Realtors has started tracking how many times the lock boxes have been opened. In Park City, we use what's called a Supra box. It's an electronic key box where the key is stored, and it sends out an electronic notification every time it's accessed. And that's increased substantially since post-pandemic. So you're absolutely right.
Okay, so I'm going to put what words I assigned to this before this discussion, and then you tell me if they're good or they should be changed. Steady market. We got some slowing that you guys reported, but we've got demand, and now we've got overpriced, or not overpriced, but sales, not in all instances, selling sometimes over the list price. That's feeling very steady by Park City standards. Do you agree, or do you think that should be maybe labeled differently?
No, I'm comfortable with that. It does seem like a very steady market right now.
In the primary home category.
In the primary home category. And, you know, to underscore it, you know, in the pandemic, the Builder Association, you know, their confidence dropped quite a bit. And, you know, there was a lot of talk of, you know, new builds being put on hold. But confidence in the National Builders Association is up 21 points to 58%, which puts it in the positive range across the whole association. So there's good positive sentiment in the Builders Association as well.
You know, Doug, it's good to have you as one of the members of the board of directors for the Park City Realtors, because you got all those
Inside information.
All right, let's go to the next category, second homes.
Well, second homes can, you know, a second home can be a primary home, or a second home can be, you know, a ski condo, or it can be a home in a primary resident neighborhood. So it's going to depend. If it's in a primary resident neighborhood, it's going to act like a primary resident and have a steady market. If people are looking at second homes that are maybe up right by the base of the resort, in a conglomerate of condos, that there's a lot of condos and lots of units around, which we'll probably tackle that topic under investment properties, and that's going to act a little differently. So I'd say for secondary homes, geographically, it's going to matter. It's either going to point to what we talk about in primary homes, or it's going to be more towards investment homes, properties.
Right, more of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
So the second homes, I think that with primary homes and people wanting to move out of big cities or just considering the Park City lifestyle, I know even in Park City, some people saw the pandemic coming and stay-at-home order, and they went down to Cabo, or a vacation destination, to a second home that they had, because they figured the kids weren't going to be in school, or the kids weren't in school. And so they decided to do that, which could encourage people more, similar to the primary homes thing. If you want to get out of a big city, live the lifestyle, be out in the fresh air of Park City, and you have that option, you've been looking for a second home, then it's still, you know, now they still have it, and they come skiing or come out during the summer and still use their second home. So I mean, I have clients that are still looking for second homes, and it's if somebody needs or would prefer rental income when they're not using it, that could be a different story. But a lot of people that you work with don't rely on that rental income, and even more so with the pandemic, may not want to rent it out if they're on the fence for it, just because they don't want multiple people coming through their second home.
Yeah, as long as it's not in a rental pool type of a second, you know, if it's your second home that you rent out when you're not using it, if you try to nightly rent your second home, it's going to be tougher. But I think if it's just your home away from home, sales should remain pretty steady and healthy.
All right, well, let's see how I did. I said slow but steady. The reason I had slow was some of the people who want to buy a second home aren't ready to travel yet while we're shooting videos, and agents are posting them on YouTube or through various other ways to get in front of it. I've certainly represented a seller or two who had buyers who lived elsewhere who wanted to buy, whether it was a primary home or a secondary home, but were under stay-at-home orders, and so they weren't ready to get on a plane yet. And they said, hey, we're interested in this property, but we just can't see ourselves buying it without seeing it firsthand. And the instance I'm thinking about, somebody else came along and bought the property, so the seller was okay, wasn't hurt by it, but that's why I said slow. I think it slowed down because of that, and I think once people get more comfortable traveling the distance, it probably will become the steady market. But as Jeremy said, some of these properties are located in primary neighborhoods, so they're that steady market anyway. So I think I'm okay with that label.
Yeah, I think we'll give you a 90% on that one.
Okay, all right.
Maybe a B plus.
All right, I'm lucky today. All right, your grade will come out later this week, Jeremy. All right, let's go to the next category, rental properties. And these can be homes or condominiums. And as we all know, some of the rental properties that people buy here, they're still using it primarily. Some of them are buying it to get maximum rental, and they barely use it, or maybe it gets this maximum rental during the ski season, and they come up during the summers. Others, they're going to use it, but they just want a little bit of income to supplement it. And certainly we know, and all of us can speak to it, but particularly the buyer's agents, we know that it's a common question for buyers to say, what's the rental history of a property? And that influences them into buying, and maybe it's they figure out what their loan amount will be based upon anticipating that. And that becomes obviously a question mark per our timeline because of the reasons we've mentioned already. So let me just kick this out to you guys and share your thoughts.
I know that as far as servicing our listings, I get way more requests for rental income than I used to.
Interesting. I think the rental properties is, a bit of a question mark. Most rental properties make a good portion of their income between, say, December and April, December and March. Get some rentals during the summer months. So I think it's going to be how we proceed through the summer and the public's perception of the dangers and how comfortable people get with traveling. Now, even with the resorts open, anticipating they will be open, and bookings, I would imagine, some international travel, some international tourists, that number is going to be down more than even, say, domestic, because we can fly around the country domestically, but there are, issues with international borders. So I'm not sure exactly what percentage of international tourists we have in Park City every year. That would be a consideration for people coming and renting these rental properties. And that's the biggest question mark for me. It could go either way. That's just a big question mark right now, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is a question mark, and when showing properties now, this is a conversation that I've been having with all of my clients. I'll collect the rental history when we go and look at a property or when they request it. But I do say, so this is the histories. We have actual history, we have pro formas, and this is all based off of the previous histories that we've seen and comps there, which the unknown is next season. So the unknown, the first year that you're going to own this property, is what the unknown is.
Right.
And we don't know. I mean, I've talked to the property management company, and it seems like people are reserving. But if we have this second wave, or if there's more fears, or if there's more restrictions on travel, All these things are unknown, and we can't see that. And I'm sure Doug and Ron don't appreciate this, but I do. It is applied towards a strategy for purchase price. Now, what is the property worth? We're going to lose potentially half the rental income we would have otherwise gained. Is that something we factor into the purchase price? And so these are all things that we talk about, and typically would apply in submitting an offer. And right or wrong, I mean, it's tough, right? Because it's an unknown what's going to happen. But the known is a lot of people don't need to collect the rental income or don't want to if it's a second home. And the main investment in a property in Park City is the appreciation, and you still have your second home when you come out here and do go skiing. You're not staying in a hotel that was rented out to 100 different people the night before or the month before. Sorry, probably not 100 different people the night before. And you know it,
during the Sundance Film Festival, you don't.
yeah, during Sundance, but you know it's safe and you know it's clean, and so all those still factor into it and makes people feel more comfortable to travel to their own property. So
Yeah, and I would add that if you're thinking about buying a rental property here in Park City and you're planning to own it for more than 1 year, which I would highly suggest you do that, because
Yes.
most of the money here is made on appreciation and it can be quite lucrative. If you're planning to hold the property for 3 to 5 years, I think we're going to get through this. And so I wouldn't worry too much. Maybe have a little bit more reserves if you're depending on rentals to pay the mortgage, but you can factor that in when you purchase the property.
Yeah, good point, Jeremy. I was going to say that same thing. Your ownership is going to outlast the COVID-19 pandemic. But the thing with rental properties, what we do see historically, is when the stock market is as fickle as it's been, that does drive people who have some investment money to actually purchase more rental properties. They don't want to stare at a computer screen like we are and see all these red numbers going downhill. Put it into a rental property in Park City, where you're going to get the appreciation over time. You're going to have a little bit of rental income to help with your carrying costs, etc. But more importantly, unlike a stock, you can actually come to Park City and live in it for a week or 2 weeks or a month, however long you want. So as the stock market does more poorly, I think that we'll start seeing more people start to want to reinvest into rental properties. Much safer and stable investment.
The stock market is crazy.
Yeah.
I knew that would say
Up, it goes down. It shouldn't go up. It goes up. It shouldn't go down. It's really crazy. Historically, I'm just picking back on what Doug was saying there is we have seen, and this is, if anything sounded like Wilstein was talking out of both sides of his mouth, here's my warning. It's going to sound this way, but it's true anyway. On the one hand, when the stock market goes up, people have more money. Now, they like it investing and working, and they're happy about that, but it also gives them more resources to invest in real estate. So some people use that as a trigger point to buy real estate, whether it's in Park City or elsewhere, it doesn't matter. That's the reality. They got more liquidity so that they can do it if they want to. And sometimes they dream for a Park City property and they see it possibly being fulfilled because the stock market was good to them. What is equally true, here comes me talking out the other side of my mouth, is that when the stock market drops, people get indigestion, sometimes a serious case, and they go, why am I in the market? I got to get out of the market. And they took a hit because it dropped, but they pull their money out. And you probably know people who have done that. And they go, what am I going to do with it? Well, I'm going to invest in real estate because it may not be as liquid, but I can use it, like Doug said. And if it's in where I like to go skiing, all the better. And so we watch this. It's like a pinball game or a tennis ball game where the ball goes back and forth and we go, we're not spinning this, that we're just trying to come up with a positive on each side. It's true. Market goes up, people have more money to invest in real estate. Market goes down, they want out of the market, stock market, and so they want to get something that, as Doug said, at least you can use it. And then, as Jeremy referenced earlier, people from an investing point of view make their money on appreciation. Whatever rental you get, it's supplemental, it's helpful. But the reality is, if you were trying to invest in real estate exclusively for rental income and associated with cap rates, investing in Park City is not the best place to invest. It's not. It's not the fulfillment of that. But the one thing this pandemic has taught us, that what our fulfillment in life is changing a bit, and pleasure and good health and all these other things. So, all right, let's see what I put there. Well, yeah, I put the rental properties, the market has paused. It definitely has paused because I think that seems to be the one that most buyers are uncertain about, and they have to digest the things that you guys just shared earlier. And I think they will also ask, what's it going to take? That's true of buyers and sellers. The buyers are probably asking if I can't count on the rental income, at least for this upcoming ski season, or at least as much, what does it take for me to buy a property? And that probably is going to translate into a better deal. And, Dean or Jeremy are negotiating for you. That's what they're going to push hard for, and they're good at doing that. The sellers, I like flexing the muscles. Okay, now we're going to flex some muscles. The sellers have a more difficult question. They have to recognize that that's what is going through the mind of a buyer. And if they want to sell, they may have to adjust to it. Now it depends on, are they competing with a lot of properties, depending upon their unique property and location. So all those things come into play, and Doug and I always go through that with sellers, but it's a little more difficult pill for the sellers to swallow. I was talking to a seller about a week and a half ago, and she was asking the question, in light of the COVID virus, in light of all the uncertainties, is this the right time to put the property on the market? And Doug and I, share the pros and cons, and this is our approach. All we can do is provide you with information and let you make the decision in your own particular situation. But at one point, and I wrote this down, and I said, this is quotable. I'm going to use this probably in a roundtable. So here it comes. He said, all right, I don't know what the market's going to do or not do, but I want to miss the next dip. And I went, oh, that's a great quote. And I wrote it down. I typically asked, you have to decide how important it is to sell or not sell, or what you would do with the proceeds. And they owned the property for a long time. And while they had answers to those different questions, as soon as she said, I want to miss the next dip, she realized, and we realized, she wants to sell now. And she's willing to take into account the buyer's attitude. What will it take to sell? And that totally makes sense. And she's getting her property ready. And, once it's ready, unless her mind changes, and it might, her and her husband, they're going to put it on the market. So it's an ongoing process. And, what we turn up doing as agents is we try to, through our webinars and our newsletters and our roundtables and just our phone calls, we try to make people aware of these things, and they have to ultimately make the decision. We're not the final deciders, but we're a trusted advisor, and so that's what our goal is. And so I think there's a pause. I think that's the one, the first two, they were steady eddies. This one, low pause as people are figuring it out. Let me hit the last one. Vacant land. We don't have that much. We got less in town, more out of town, but stuff out of town is really selling, especially if it's got a lot of acreage. What do you see happening there? What do people want, and for buyers or sellers?
Yeah, vacant land has been very strong through the pandemic, especially land that is, I would say, 2 or more acres.
And more remote.
Yeah, even with cabins or cabin communities. And I watched 4 very expensive large parcels on Old Ranch Road all go under contract after the pandemic had hit, that had been on the market for some time. I'm talking $2-3 million properties, vacant land. And I think the vacant land has honestly been one of the hottest markets with when sometimes they'll sit for a little bit. I can see a piece of land come on the market and it's like, oh yeah, that's going to sell quickly. And sure enough, it's gone within a week. So yeah, I would say land has been steady, if not more active during the pandemic.
And it's not just because people feel safe out in open air touring a piece of vacant land. So why is it?
I think they just, depending where their situation is, where they're coming from, I think they visualize that dream property where if they just have space, have nature around them, not be right on top of their neighbors. So, if this does recur or what the future holds, they have their own private oasis.
Their little secluded spot up in the mountains.
Yeah.
Sounds delightful.
Yeah, I don't know. Also, I mean, that's what all the celebrities do, right? They own their ranches, and then when you're watching things, in my experience, The Voice, they're all zoomed from their ranches in Montana or their ranches
Exactly.
so-and-so, and they love it. So, I mean, it's very desirable to live out on a ranch and have some land, especially when you're in a pandemic. And you get outside, you can keep your social distance on your own land.
Neil Young has been recording songs from his ranch, and his wife, Daryl Hannah, is the videographer.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched a video of him playing the guitar and singing a song, and chickens were clucking and a little row of ducks walking by, and there's a pony in the background. Pretty idyllic.
Who doesn't want that life, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
As long as you're rich and famous, you can afford it.
That's true.
It helps.
Some have to suffer.
Yeah.
Well, any other thoughts before I turn over my card?
Go
Well,
for
new
it.
Go ahead, Jen, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that, people who are either selling vacant land or buying vacant land, it seems like the construction economy is healthy. People, even if they are in the middle of a pandemic like we are right now, construction workers are still allowed to work. They're outside, they're spaced from their coworkers, it's fairly safe. And so it seems like new construction hasn't taken much of a hit. I don't know if that's correct.
I would say new construction stuff might be hit or miss. I've talked to a few builders that have been very busy. I think the builders are busy. They've been very busy throughout the pandemic working because they are able to work and they've got their private clients. But I think new construction developments may take a little bit more of a hit, especially if you've got investors that are purchasing multiple properties and potentially pulled out of purchasing those properties. So I think that could be something that we might see. And again, it hasn't been enough time to see the results for a lot of what's happened because it takes a couple of months to see what's closing when new construction stuff is completed. But I think it's possible that we do see new construction condo developments take a little bit of a hit because of the pandemic and everything.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking of new construction of primary homes
That stayed steady. That's all there, and those people want their homes, and builders have already contracted to build them and working on it. So for the most part, from what I've heard, that has stayed strong.
Good.
All right, well, here's my words. Limited, buy it now. The best stuff gets bought right away, as Jeremy said. It is limited. I love living in Park City. Been here 33 years. I can get in my car and drive approximately 90 seconds and get to the office. That's really nice.
Why aren't you walking, man?
Or I can walk. But sometimes I drive because I can drive another 90 seconds from my office, or a total of 3 minutes, and get to the base of the Park City resort where my ski locker is. So I'm spoiled, and that's exactly why I'm living here. I love it. Having said that, I recognize there's limited land. You got to figure out what you want. My wife and I have been looking for land for a long time. And just to let you know, we're not just salespeople. We put our money where our mouth is. My wife and I just bought out in the Oakley area 15 acres vacant land. She's had a dream that this thing can fulfill for a long time. I love it purely on investment. And so we're not just talking about this, we're doing it. And
Well, you don't love mom?
yeah. And we agreed on this point.
What does she want to build out there?
He wants sheep.
Oh,
He's always wanted sheep.
She's
And
one.
it's a beautiful opportunity, and we know that it was limited, and so we bought it now. And heck, while we were under contract and went there and visited, there were 2 other people who wanted to buy it too. We could have turned around and sold it again. And then of course, Jeremy, who's a collector of real estate, he's doing the same thing. So while in the midst of a pandemic, while realizing this, we're realizing in this category, particularly of vacant land, it is limited. If you want to buy it now, especially if it's rare. And so our market is still moving. We're not candy coating it. You heard it from the experts, and you heard it from 6 people who are dealing with this every day in one form or another. That's Park City right now. And, you get a slightly different version when we do this again in a month or 2. But I think I'm good with this chart. My goal, and I appreciate everyone's input, off the recording, if you have something else, by all means share it. But next month's webinar, I want to present this. Of course, we're doing social distancing, so it'll just be me running through it, but I'm going to refer people to this recording so that they can, if they want to get the whole story, and get the untold story. And our plan is to send out a large postcard with this on it, not quite as many details, and have people who are interested either watch the webinar or this roundtable. And that's the plan, guys, for what we're going to do. And my hope is that people pick up the phone, ask us any questions, and if we can help them, then it's a benefit for all of us in our business. So
Good
that's it.
conversation.
Appreciate everybody's time. Any last words? Here's your chance to give them.
so you're going to blast this out for everybody to watch our staff meeting?
Well, yeah.
We'll show it to mom.
Show it to mom.
Yeah, don't let her listen to this. She doesn't want to
Don't
hear
give her any ideas.
about the land. She wants you to love it too.
Hey, she just bought a big piece of land. She's a
I know.
fulfillment. All right.
Purely an investment for you. It wasn't the same love from you, Ron.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just strictly investment, not the love for your wife and her her farm, her
No
dreams.
sentimental value.
I'm gonna give you a couple minutes, couple seconds to take that back before we sign off.
You guys are getting me in trouble no matter what I say.
This is why Jeremy's her favorite son.
He
I
is
am your
my
favorite
favorite son. I would gladly switch him for my other one. I just don't have one.
But Ron has editing power. He can clip anything of this he wants to right out.
That's true, but I do believe in truth in advertising. So anyway, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I'm in the office. I'll see you when you pop in. I know Doug and Dean are just recording from the other room over. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank
see
you.
you later.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.